Brazilian BA guest, we are always trying to bring you new information about business analysis for anyone who practices business analysis and for those who are not practicing it yet. Maybe they should. That's what we are going to talk about today with my special guest, Keith Ellis. Hello, Keith. Thank you for coming.
Fabrício, thank you for inviting me to the session today to talk about this. It's a pretty important subject.
All right. Yes, I think it is. And I have seen really recently an article published by IIBA where it talks about a partnership that the International Institute of Business Analysis made with the Human Resources Professional Association. And I believe you are creating this program for human resource professionals. And so they are seeing that they can use business analysis in their professional. And my question for you today is not restricted for human resources, but we can talk about them, is why is business analysis essential to any professional?
It's a great question. I think we have to step back and say the foundation of business is changing so fast, right? When you think about the amount of change impacting organizations, you have to be able to respond quickly, and you want the business function, regardless of whether it's audit or finance or HR or IT or anything else, to come forward with solutions, right? So it's about, instead of being a source of no, or instead of being a partner, you want to be a solution partner. You want to engage at that executive level to be able to say, how do I help this organization as a whole embrace change? How do I help be part of solutioning that change? How do I really understand the underpinning problems of what has to happen? And that's true of audit, that's true of financial professional, that's true of sales, that's true of anybody out there. In sales, we call it need discovery, right? In audit, it's going to be really around, how do I understand this undercover, this underpinning process and the strength of the underpinning process. In finance, it's going to be other things that are related to this, but it's about being that nimble partner to support an organization, right, in terms of what it's trying to accomplish. These things are critical to every profession. Now, the thing is that everybody's professionally trained to their profession, right? I'm professionally trained to be an accountant or an auditor or a sales professional or whatever. What I don't necessarily have is a playbook that I use to engage my stakeholders and help them elaborate that problem and really get at that root cause, really help them to understand where I'm going, right?
Right. I believe I saw this expression probably in the article that I mentioned before. That's changing a mindset of the ones that are working in those areas, like all those areas that you said, from being a service provider to a solution designer.
Yeah.
So when people ask me to do some work independently on the work I do in my company, and I give them the result, and they say, "Oh, that's not what I wanted." But I say, "Oh, that's what you asked for. So you are asking it wrongly." I'm not applying a business analysis mindset here. I didn't understand the problem. I didn't understand the needs. I didn't look for the stakeholders. So I believe when you mention this shift about how people can work in their areas if they apply a business analysis in the way of working, is that this ability of understanding the problems of my customers, depending if it's an internal or external customer, and providing the right solution or helping them to design the solution or the right solution or the solution that gets more value to them.
Well, and think of it even more broadly. Like you're absolutely correct. People need a playbook. They need to say, where's my go-to? What do I do when I'm faced with, the critical conversation, or what do I do when I'm faced with, somebody coming forward and asking for a solution? I don't know what to do. How do I do this, right? Or how do you be part of a major, say, digital transformation where it's going to potentially shift everything in the way the company does work? So these are all big issues, right, for organizations. Think of the pandemic, right? Think of other kind of major shifts that have happened in an HR context, auditing context, other types of contexts. You need a playbook. You need a way of executing. So, and when you go down that pathing, right, it's about levels of precision. Like most people know conceptually what a business case is, just as an example, right? Just to use this particular one.
Right.
But where does the richness of detail come from? How do I go get that? How do I go get and uncover what's the best way to approach this? What's the best solution that's actually going to deliver maximum value for the enterprise? You need a way of doing that. You need something that's more repeatable, and that's business analysis, right? So why make up something when you've got a great pathway that's well designed and well proven to do these types of things?
With a lot of practice, describe it and understood and well defined. And then, but I understand that you are applying for a specific audience when you did this partnership with the Human Resources Professional Association. How is this partnership working? Is this a course? Is this a certification? What is this program that you developed for them?
So what HRPA, specifically the Human Resources Professional Association, wanted was they realized that their membership was taking a tremendous amount of training, but it tended to be in areas that, were workforce management, the core processes and practices of HR professionals today. And they were not getting a lot of training in areas like business acumen and strategy, technology savvy, using data to drive decision making, these other kinds of things, which are fundamental, foundational to the professional and the advancement of the profession. And so that's the genesis of us working together is to say, well, business analysis is all about those things, right? It's all about that. How do I build the business acumen? How do I get at the root cause? Because there's core techniques that enable you to do that, but you got to have that training and building and understanding. So what they wanted to do is actually build a certificate on top of IIBA certification. And so the Human Resources Solution Certificate, right, actually enables and prepares somebody to pass the IIBA, ECBA examination or professional examination. We've aligned those two professionals to bring business analysis skills, techniques. You're not trying to create a business analysis professional out of an HR professional, but you're bringing some foundation skills that enables the HR professional to apply that skill day in and day out in everything that they're doing, that toolkit day in and day out to the base routine activities that they're doing, but also the more strategic. To do that, you need to apply it to an HR professional's context, and their context is different. It's going to be core work processes like workforce planning, like succession planning, compensation, these other kinds of things. So then you have to make it relevant to that profession.
How do you see this opportunity happening again in other professions? Okay, do you see something happening for auditors or for lawyers or for financial people? Would that be would the IIBA or those associations have a lot of certifications, or would we have a core business analysis knowledge that's shared by all these professionals, and we could call that?
There's a core language here, and there's a core understanding. Like you would never ever consider rewriting debits and credits as part of the core language of finance, right? Or balance sheet income statement. Why would you do that? And so trying to recreate what is business acumen and how do you build business acumen effectively within organizations, or need discovery. Why would you try to recreate that in another profession when you've got a full body of knowledge and rich set of techniques that are battle tested and proven to do that? You wouldn't do that. It doesn't make sense. And so obviously there is a need for this. And as you've got this higher level of change going on in organizations and a higher level of need to influence, like let's just say internal audit as an example, right? Auditors, you have to weave compliance and auditing and auditability into the very fabric of the processes of the organization. You have to, right? So how do you do that compliance and auditability layering in an organization in a world that's changing so quickly, right? Without business analysis there to support and drive it. It ends up creating, you're driving the wrong information. You're not able to communicate effectively to the organization. You're saying no, rather than coming forward as a solution designer, as somebody who really understands how to apply their subject matter expertise in the profession to the business situation at hand elicit the requirements in terms of what the business wants to try to accomplish, the needs, and define that, and then come forward with solutions that make sense, right, in the context of where the business wants to go. And that's what the executive and board is demanding of these professions, because they do need to change with the times to be able to adapt to this tremendous pressure that's coming onto organizations to change and adapt to new dimensions of the way the world works.
Great. That's what I am always thinking about when I'm talking about the business analysis mindset, something that we could share with other kind of professionals without the name of being a professional business analyst, but being a professional in everything. Oh, I'm very glad to see that you are going forward with that direction, that the IIBA is making those partnerships, and I hope everyone who's watching us right now can think themselves as business analysts if they are not yet, independently of their profession. They can see the value of applying business analysis into their skills or into their skill set.
And when you think, Fabrício, of who is taking business analysis training today, it's one of the top skills right now out there that people are taking training on. And it's not necessarily business analysis professionals that are doing it. It's many different types of professionals that are taking it, because we all need that toolkit. We all need that way of thinking that says, I start here with a business situation. How do I go and turn that into a really well understood set of needs and potential directions that we can go in terms of solutions? How do I do that quickly and efficiently? How do I think in terms of a persona? Who is my customer? How do I think in terms of different techniques for rendering, hey, here's my solution or here's my problem, and communicate that efficiently with people? How do you truly understand where the friction is going to be in an enterprise without understanding the processes of that enterprise and mapping it out and saying, oh my gosh, of course there's going to be friction here because it's crossing organizational boundaries too much. We don't have accountability. So these techniques are they're well proven in terms of being able to help organizations solve problems and communicate better. And it's that frictionless communication that enables the organization to act faster. And that's really what people need to do.
Keith, thank you very much for coming here again and talking about the profession of business analysts and business analysis mindset for everyone.
Sounds good. Thank you, Fabrício. Cheers.
Cheers.